time. The story begins with a very small child facing a huge giant with a blue color. The giant causes columns and buildings to crumble with every movement. The giant bent down to the child and told him to stop crying, asking why he's always bored and suffocated. The boy said he's tired of life in this place and can't stand living here anymore. The giant swore to fulfill his requests, swearing by the planet Earth itself to execute his orders and wishes, no matter what they were, even if he wanted all the money and treasures of the world, to live forever, or to be the strongest human in the universe. The small boy is Aladdin from a world of superheroes and wonders. Suddenly, Aladdin finds himself in a dream car, or rather, a watermelon cart, and starts eating the watermelon as if starving until someone catches him in the act. Ali Baba is a bit older than Aladdin but very clever. He works as a laborer and driver on this cart, and the problem is that its owner is very fat, and he's afraid of seeing this disaster. Ali Baba, who is saving every penny to fulfill his dream, a dream that everyone blames him for, which is entering the mysterious magic cave. With intense irritation, Ali asks for the name of the kid who could cause him trouble. Aladdin responds with joy and coolness, cutting a new piece of watermelon. Suddenly, the merchant arrives asking for his goods. Ali Baba tried to hide the smashed watermelon from him, but of course he couldn't. Aladdin got out of the cart and started squeezing and playing with the body of the market governor as if it were a rubber toy. It was silly of Ali Baba to let this strange boy stay at his house. At night, Ali Baba heard very loud crunching sounds. He quickly opened the curtain to find Aladdin had finished a whole sack of apples too. Ali was wondering what to do before they ran out of food and had to eat plain dried meat. He clearly said that they must start looking for the first tower. Aladdin asked what tower she was talking about. Pulling out a roll of paper or old maps, Ali Baba mentioned he would tell him about the towers. He unrolled the paper and explained that these were giant towers that appeared about 40 years ago in different places. Whoever could destroy a tower would gain a huge fortune, jewels, treasures, and even become a king. As Ali Baba was talking about the treasures, including magical items that could fly and real magicians, he started to fall asleep. Meanwhile, Aladdin, who came from another magical and strange world, saw that he could definitely help Ali Baba in destroying any tower, and asked if he could take him to any of them, but Ali Baba was already asleep. Aladdin took out a strange golden flute and said it seemed they would find friends in this world, bidding the flute good night as Ojagon. The next morning, Aladdin woke up to being scolded and hit by Ali Baba because Ali was used to waking up early and starting his day, either working in the market or thinking about his dream and how to achieve it. On their way, Aladdin asked about the location of one of the towers from the story the night before. Ali Baba pointed to a giant, ornately decorated golden tower, telling him it was M1's tower, the seventh tower, which appeared 10 years ago in the city. However, Ali Baba was greedy and not just dreaming of destroying this tower, but all the towers in the world to become richer than anyone else. Ali Baba had blonde hair without a braid, and Aladdin had blue hair with a braid, but this made them friends, and they started their journey. Aladdin asked Ali if he liked money, to which Ali Baba replied that he always needed money. He then showed Aladdin the beauty of the fruits in the market, and the beauty of the girls too. As Aladdin was overwhelmed, he bumped into a young woman, causing her to fall. He immediately apologized, and the woman, taller than him, looked at him angrily, picked up the lemons that had fallen from her head basket, and walked away. Suddenly, the beautiful young woman fell again because she tried to hide what was bothering her most, trying to cover the shackles and iron chains she was wearing with her dress. Ali Baba explained to Aladdin that this meant the young woman was a slave, and slaves were bought and sold. She cried and gathered the lemons back into her basket. Aladdin approached her, took out his golden flute, and played a note towards the iron chains on the woman's legs, breaking them instantly. He told the woman she was now free and no longer a slave, feeling happy about it. But Ali Baba was shocked by this new trouble, saying it wasn't right to do that. Then the fat market governor and arbiter of its disputes came, grabbed Ali Baba, and said that the slave was his and freeing her was a crime that had to be paid for. He threatened as usual and squeezed lemon on Ali Baba's face. Ali Baba refused to give in to the situation, asking how they could be accused of breaking an iron chain. What would they break it with? The deceitful man said he would make Ali Baba a captive slave if he didn't pay a fine for his crime and for freeing the slave girl. The brute then began to beat the poor girl, telling Ali Baba he would humiliate him like her and make him work all day for standing up to him. But for the first time, Aladdin started to defend and speak up to the man, who looked down on him greatly and ordered the guards to seize them. As soon as the guards' daggers were at their necks, Aladdin blew into the flute, and hands and arms the size of a genie that would obey his orders came out. The whole scene changed, and everyone was shocked and stunned by the situation. Aladdin saved himself, Ali Baba, and also the poor girl. When he looked at her, terrified and confused, the hands turned pink, giving her a certain energy, and she got up and ran away. Ali Baba and Aladdin hid in a wooden room with a lid. Ali Baba was peeking out to check the surroundings, wondering what to do next. He asked Aladdin about the huge arms, and Aladdin said they belonged to his friend, who people call a genie. Suddenly, Ali Baba thought about entering and destroying the tower, but he was nervous because no one who entered the tower ever came out alive. But this time he had his friend Aladdin and the magical flute. He looked down at Aladdin, smiled foolishly, and tried to persuade him to help by promising to introduce him to pretty girls. Inside the palace, the deceitful market governor stood before the king, who was asking about the strange events in the market. The governor was shackled at his feet like a slave in front of the young king, who warned him not to hide anything for him again, and to focus on his work with the trade caravan the next day. Indeed, the two went to a restaurant filled with girls and young women who became friends with Aladdin. Aladdin felt like he was in a kid's area, tickling the girls and making them laugh. He told Ali Baba about his true goal for the first time. He wished from the genie to help him reach other worlds and cities of genies, and he had decided early on to join him in the adventure of the tower. Ali Baba felt confident they would succeed in navigating the maze and destroying the tower with Aladdin. He decided to befriend a beautiful girl like Aladdin, who was having a great time. When a beautiful, delicate-heeled Shrew approached him, he was shocked to see the woman coming to sit with him was 20 times his size, and her jokes turned out to be crude and violent. Leaving the restaurant, they encountered the market governor demanding his money from Ali Baba. Ali Baba, frustrated and angry, told him he would destroy the tower and then pay him back, but the governor and his guards laughed. Ali Baba knew if he ran, the town would be filled with posters declaring him wanted and a criminal. The other option was to be arrested and thrown in jail indefinitely, or to serve the governor in all his work, which Ali Baba, of course, chose as the last resort. The first task he was given was to deliver wine barrels for their king, named Jamal Sama, which were to be sent to the governor of the neighboring country. At the start of the caravan, Ali Baba saw the slave girl with dark pink hair. He learned from the people around that she and the others were going as gifts to a certain king. Ali Baba was leading the caravan next to the terrible market governor, who insisted on getting Ali Baba's agreement that servants remain servants for life, and the powerful always stay above the poor. Ali Baba couldn't stand hearing his voice but faked a wide smile and agreed, just to get out of the situation. However, Aladdin, sticking close to Ali Baba, called him out for lying. As the caravan peacefully progressed, a violent shake like an earthquake happened, and the ground split open, revealing a giant predatory flower that wanted the wine shipment. Unfortunately, the caravan leaned towards the split in the ground, and was about to fall if not for the guards trying to save it. The girl known as the one with the worst luck in the world, with dark pink hair, named Mina, was next to her when the slate cage broke, and they both fell into the heart of the flower. The market governor ordered them to save the wine barrels above all else, not caring about the two girls who fell into the flower. But Ali Baba quickly took a barrel and slid into the hold to give it to the flower, although it was a failed attempt because the flower closed. Finally, Aladdin blew into the flute. A genie appeared, minus his head, and forcefully opened the flower, allowing Ali to throw the barrel inside. However, the flower wanted all the barrels, so Aladdin asked for a flying carpet and lifted the barrel cart with it. The flower's snake-like limbs tied the genie's legs, but he kept the flower open, and Ali Baba rescued the girls. However, the flower closed on Ali Baba himself this time. Inside the flower, he gave up on his body and started thinking about death as his end, but he saw the carpet with Aladdin on it, ready to escape death. Before throwing the wine to the flower, Aladdin wanted to teach Ali Baba a lesson. He told him not to lie or be hypocritical when he is kind and brave inside, qualities that money or wine can't buy, such as morals and the human spirit. He threw all the wine, and the flower freed the genie's legs and released Ali Baba. The entire caravan watched this terrifying scene, standing on the edge of the predatory flower's pit, with the market governor screaming about the king's wine. The king, who was watching the caravan through a telescope because he wanted to see Aladdin, the flute, and Aladdin and Ali Baba flew to the top of Amun Tower. Ali Baba fought hard before they touched the magical gate and got sucked into it. Suddenly, Aladdin fainted, and they both touched the gate and were pulled inside. They found themselves flying in space, seeing Earth below. A bright light shone, and Ali Baba woke up in a cave, his face in water, struggling to breathe, but then realized the water was actually oil. As he looked around, fire started on the rocks like steps. Ali Baba called for Aladdin, grabbed him, and ran away from the fire that reached the oil at the cave's bottom, causing a huge explosion that threw them away from the fire. Aladdin woke up, thanking Ali Baba for saving him. They thought about the oil that burned more than gasoline. Suddenly, a huge rolling rock chased them. At the right moment, Aladdin blew into his golden flute, and his genie appeared, carrying them with giant steps to safety before disappearing again. Feeling a bit safe, Aladdin was very hungry in this strange place. Ali Baba tried to reassure him that they might find food here, but it seemed they were the ones about to be eaten, as Ali Baba couldn't find Aladdin but found a green insect with sharp teeth, and a bigger one 10 times the size eating Aladdin. Ali Baba quickly rescued Aladdin from its mouth. Suddenly 20 insects surrounded them, and Ali Baba started fighting them with his dagger. He found their bodies weak and killed them, but they turned into a green liquid that formed a giant green monster with eyes and teeth all over its body. Using the flute while on the genie's head, the monster shot fire like a dragon, but the genie hit it so hard it created a deep hole in the ground. But Aladdin was really tired and needed food because using the genie took his energy. Ali Baba didn't know much about Aladdin and had kept his obsession with entering the tower a secret. But feeling that his friend always saved him, he decided to share his secret. Ojagan was the name of the genie that came out of Aladdin's flute, very powerful but draining Aladdin's energy. Even when Ali Baba tried, he couldn't make a sound from the flute, which had inscriptions he couldn't read, but he gave Aladdin water and tried to find food. King Jamal Salma also decided to enter the magical gate of the tower. Despite his ministers and assistants trying to dissuade him, he insisted on achieving glory and entered with a huge guard wearing an iron mask showing only one eye. Suddenly, Ali Baba heard footsteps in the cave with Aladdin unconscious. Peeking from behind rocks, he saw King Jamal Salma walking with the guard. The pink-haired girl appeared with shackles on her legs, but stood confidently. The king approached Aladdin and welcomed the magician he had been waiting for 10 years. The huge guard carried a large basket of food for the journey. The king signaled, and the guard picked up Aladdin and walked away, leaving Ali Baba behind. Ali Baba confronted the king, refusing to let them take Aladdin. The king dismissed him as useless and called the guard, Gomas, to deal with Ali Baba, who drew a huge sword. Ali Baba dodged the first strike, held a dagger to the guard's neck, and threatened the king. After embarrassing his guard, Ali Baba demanded to know what the king wanted from them. The king stabbed his guard multiple times to show Ali Baba that the guard was unaffected by the stabs, explaining that this slave was unlike any other, and offered Ali Baba to join him. Ali Baba questioned the king's identity, who claimed to be just a king with lands but wanted to rule a state. He had an army of slaves and soldiers, all dead in traps except for this one slave. The flower trap on the caravan's path was one of the king's traps. Ali Baba agreed to follow the king, not wanting to leave Aladdin alone. They reached a fiery gate with strange writings around it. Recognizing the language as Turanian, the king gave Ali Baba 2 gold coins, impressed by his intelligence. The king read that the path led to a dragon and hinted at the truth of dancers. Ali Baba read aloud about dancing with a whirlwind, passing the dragon's jaw to reach the truth, with all lies in the dragon's tail. The king lightly but sharply stabbed Ali Baba's arm, saying he was about to say the same. The king challenged Ali Baba to prove his worth by navigating through a sudden fire whirlwind, jumping from rock to pass the firestorm, which he did. Facing a petrified dragon's jaw, the king told Ali Baba to reach inside for the key. As he did, the firestorm vanished, but as the king and others rushed inside, Ali Baba was swallowed by a powerful firestorm and disappeared. The king lamented his loss, but a piece of Ali Baba's burnt clothing fell. The real door behind it is the treasure of the Tower of Amun. Both of them arrived there. Ali noticed that it had marks similar to those on the golden flute. There's a place for the imprint of 2 right hands. Aladdin asked if 2 people had to open the door. They both put their right hands and opened the top door. They found themselves seeing the world from above the Tower of Amun. At the top of the tower, there's a magical dome where they are safe underneath. But the king and his 2 slaves were still facing monsters. The king hits a woman named Morjana, blaming her for being deceived by someone. But the monster itself spoke to him, saying it's his own fault, not hers. Aladdin and Ali Baba flew on their magic carpet over an empty city. Aladdin mentioned that a genie once told him about the city of the dead behind the door of bravery. Ali Baba was puzzled about how a genie can speak, but Aladdin explained that he can now summon the genie's body, which has a head and speaks. Ali Baba was upset about losing his flute but hoped they'd find it. They reached another huge gate, entered a wide courtyard with a decorated dome, filled with treasures. Suddenly, a giant creature full of wounds appeared and collapsed in front of them. Morjana kicked Aladdin with great force. The obsessed king raised his sword at Ali Baba, who countered with a dagger and insulted the king. The king wanted to punish Ali Baba for the hardships they faced reaching this place and facing many monsters. Ali Baba told him to look around. Many died reaching this place, and he arrived late. He suggested the king should go home and not challenge him further. The king boasted about his combat skills and intended to fight Ali Baba fiercely, but Ali Baba was quicker and more skilled, disarming the king and winning easily. The king, amazed by Ali Baba's skills, acknowledged them as worthy of a king. Ali Baba, with his handsome face, golden hair, distinctive dagger, and gold earring, lamented not being able to forget his past. When the king called for Morgiana's help, despite her being with unconscious Aladdin, Ali Baba noted her loyalty but found her quickly turning against him. Morgiana showed her strength and speed, surprising Ali Baba, and initially seeming to join him before violently turning on him. The king mocked Ali Baba as Morgiana prepared to strike him. However, a black bird shattered the sword, and Aladdin, now awake, created a magical barrier, confronting Morgiana and the thieving king. Aladdin was sure the king had stolen his flute. When the king refused to return it, Aladdin trapped Morgiana with magic, proving his rightful place as a chosen ruler. The king, realizing Aladdin's power, begged for approval, but Aladdin dismissed him as unworthy. A blue genie, resembling Aladdin's but with a head and long beard, appeared, introducing himself as Eman, the genie of strength and justice. He declared Aladdin and Ali Baba's success, leading Aladdin to question the meaning of magic. Eman explained that magic chose the kings of towers, training them to live among people, and choose a worthy king, a lineage from Solomon, including Aladdin. As the place began collapsing, Eman created a magical exit. Morgiana hesitated but was encouraged by a creature to return to her homeland, freeing herself and taking the king with her. Two mysterious men observed the events, noting their king's failure. Morgiana, Aladdin, and Ali Baba escaped with treasures, fulfilling Morgiana's dream of freedom. Aladdin awoke in a strange place, approached by people on horses. Ali Baba remained at the destroyed tower, waiting for Aladdin's return, hailed as a hero for toppling Eman's tower. Ali Baba now lives in a palace with servants, including a market governor who used to mistreat him, but now flatters him, serves him food, and brings dancers. However, Ali Baba only wished for Aladdin's return. After 3 days, Morgiana returned to the city and went to Ali Baba, thanking him and saying she would travel to her homeland, as it was her rescuer Aladdin's wish. Ali Baba, who had freed all the slaves in the city, decided to leave and search for Aladdin. Aladdin was always surrounded by light butterflies that helped him. When he woke up this time, he was with the plains people and found himself in an old woman's tent, who welcomed him as the son of the rock, a place where spirits return after death. But she was shocked when he said these spirits gave him strength. Suddenly, a girl named Toya came in, and they left after hearing scouts had returned. The scouts confirmed a war was starting in the neighboring lands and cheered for their tribe. Aladdin cheered with them, but accidentally revealed his genie's arm, startling them. Toya defended him, insisting he was just a child, not a spy or evil. He told them he wanted to return to his friend in the city of Kishan. At night, the tribe gathered around a fire for fun and dancing. The grandmother told Aladdin he was now part of their family, which made him happy because the genie had told him he was special but had no family. Aladdin drank milk directly from a cow, then rode a horse quickly. He was saved by the third daughter of the emperor, the princess of the Ko tribe, who came to negotiate with the short old woman, the 155th descendant of the Ko tribe of the plains people. Toya tried to serve the guests mare's milk yogurt, but one of their guards knocked her down, claiming their land was now under their protection and offered to save them from their poor rural life. A tribe scout attacked the guard with a sword, but another guard blocked him, saying fighting would be like declaring war. Aladdin flew to the princess with his magic carpet, explained he was a traveler of towers who had gained things in a maze, including a carpet. He asked her not to fight the Koja tribe because they had become his family, and his grandmother would be sad. The princess said the Ko Empire aimed to unite people by hearts before land, and asked him to trust her. Seeing the light butterflies, he believed her. She was impressed when he left on his carpet. The Koja tribe faced a kidnapping incident aimed at making them slaves, including Toya, the scout leader's fiancé. The old tribe leader, the hand shaman, asked for their return without harming the enemies to avoid war. Aladdin, returning to the tribe, asked his genie about his conversation with the princess and Eman, but got no answer and felt the tribe's unrest. He rushed back with his genie. Aladdin took the tribe leader on his carpet, following their soldiers to the kidnappers' carts. The enemy shot arrows, but the soldiers dodged and jumped into the carts. The kidnapper bragged about making money from Toya and cut her hair. Her fiancé, Dorj, raised his sword, but remembered the grandmother's words and didn't kill him. The grandmother and Aladdin awaited the soldiers, discussing magi, defined as anyone with supernatural abilities, or who had destroyed a tower, starting with an ancient Koja emperor. The soldiers returned successfully, raising their swords. The tribe leader learned from Aladdin about the agreement with the princess to avoid war and surprised the soldiers by wanting to surrender to the Ko tribe to save lives and avoid war. The grandmother wished to see her descendants live in peace but was shot in the back at that moment. Aladdin carried her on the carpet to try to save her, rushing to the tribe's tents with the genie's speed. The arrow that hit the grandmother was from the Ko tribe, and the soldiers who kidnapped the girls were also from the Ko tribe. The Koja tribe's knights felt they had to fight and defend themselves because the attacks reached their leader, which was a great insult to them. On the other hand, the princess's rude assistant, who rejected Toye's hospitality and knocked her to the ground, plotted and showed his true colors. He shot an arrow, like those of the Koja tribe, at one of his tribe's guards to push the princess into war with the Koja tribe. He was also behind the kidnappings and injuring the grandmother. But the princess felt something was off and decided to visit the Koja tribe to understand better. Despite her assistant's attempts to stop her, she took another assistant with her, while the traitorous assistant stayed behind, claiming he would take her place in leadership until she returned. He then gathered the soldiers, suggesting the Koja tribe might kill the princess, leading them to think they should rescue her. But the evil commander smiled wickedly, admitting he wanted the princess killed from the start. However, all his plans were thwarted by Aladdin, who, upon hearing the knights were heading to war, tried to awaken the grandmother to stop the soldiers before a battle could start. The soldiers met the princess halfway, and one of them attacked her, cutting a lock of her hair and wounding her face. But the princess stood firm, calling for understanding and showing she knew nothing about the assault on their tribe. Suddenly, the grandmother and Aladdin arrived, resolving the conflict despite the grandmother's bleeding wound. She submitted to the princess, agreeing to surrender to the Ko tribe, believing war wastes lives and they should build a future while preserving their identity. She asked all soldiers to lay down their weapons and submit to the princess. Everyone gathered around the grandmother, but her wound was fatal. As she died, her spirit spoke to Aladdin, telling him he wasn't alone as a magi, the son of the rock, a collector of spirits, and a descendant of Solomon. Her spirit turned into light butterflies as it ascended. The evil assistant Reosai was leading an army to war against Koja, but was stopped by the returning princess, Rin, and her guard Sishin. Shocked to see her alive despite his plans, he ordered his soldiers to aim at her, revealing his hatred and jealousy. As the arrows flew towards the princess, she summoned a staff of the golden emblem and white feathers, stopping the arrows mid-air. Reosai cursed the tower travelers. The princess, Hakui, showed her supernatural strength, invoking the guardian spirit of love, chaos, and madness. Bayman, transforming into a mythical warrior and creating a wind vortex. Bayman, with a golden spear and a crown, represented the princess's warrior persona. Together with Sishin, they aimed to defeat Reosai, but it left Hakui drained. Just as they were about to capture Reosai, a larger army appeared, loyal to him and aiming at the princess and Sishin. Hakui was captured, and Reosai taunted her, threatening to kill her and her brother, Hikrio. Enraged, Hakui broke free and confronted Reosai, who then ordered his soldiers to shoot her limbs. Reosai mocked her, promising a slow, painful death. Suddenly, a voice announced the great explosion, and an explosion decimated Reosai's army, caused by Aladdin's powerful genie. The grandmother's dying gift to Aladdin, the magic staff, and the light spirits helped and saved Princess Hakui. Aladdin reassured Hakui, touching her fan, which summoned the giant blue genie, Bayman, Solomon's genie of love and chaos. Bayman and Ogokan interacted, turning Ogokan pink with joy and embarrassment. Ogokan, with his flute head, communicated with Bayman, who embraced Hakui, promising her protection and service as her only owner. Aladdin was surprised to learn Hakui was also a tower traveler. Hakui told Aladdin he needed to choose a king or prince for the tower he crossed, as a magi incarnate. Remembering Alibaba, Aladdin decided to find him, with the Koja tribe providing supplies for his journey. He noticed their swords resembled that of Golness, a brave and noble warrior from their tribe, who had died in the tower. As Aladdin left, he recalled his youth and Ogokan's words about his unique destiny, hinted at by the rock, guiding him always. Prince Hekrio, with his long black braid and unusual clothes, lived with a priest urging him to conquer the tower's maze to become emperor instead of his sister. Morgiana met two merchants heading to Baghdad, her homeland. She asked two girls to take her with them, and they sold fruits and goods along the way. She helped them sell and travel from town to town, thanking them for helping her fulfill her promise to her rescuer. They arrived in a town and were shocked to see it in chaos instead of prosperity and happiness. The streets were filled with people lying around, merchants running with their goods, and everyone trying to escape. They asked a local what was happening, who told them about conflicts over power in Baghdad and thieves attacking the town, urging everyone to flee, but Sasa and her companions told Morgiana not to worry about a few thieves. Unfortunately, they turned out to be criminals kidnapping people to sell as slaves. Morgiana remembered her own past torture by Jamal Sama from when she was a child, with shackles on her hands, feet, and neck, living in fear of being caught whenever she tried to escape. Suddenly, she woke up from the nightmare, and her friend Lily gave her medicine to calm her nerves. She told her about being lost in the desert until a strange boy rescued her, and they joined the caravan, emphasizing their duty to protect Sasa and the rest of the caravan. The caravan leader, an old man with a long white beard radiating wisdom, honestly told Morgiana they would change their route and not pass through Baghdad due to a dangerous gang of thieves and slave traders on the way. Morgiana asked if there was another way because she needed to get to Baghdad and her homeland. The leader mentioned another caravan attacked by the gang, with people killed or kidnapped, posing a risk they couldn't confront. Morgiana suggested if someone could defeat the gang and free the people, her eyes full of challenge, vengeance, and strength, showing a desire for personal freedom for the first time. The slave and thief gang was led by Fakan San, allied with a massive group of thieves settled in a high castle on a rocky mountain, a terrifying place difficult to climb. But with her supernatural abilities, Morgiana entered the castle in a moment, confronting the thieves politely to leave, but was faced by a huge man almost her size. In seconds, the man was a lifeless body because she struck him with a punch that penetrated his chest, leaving the other thieves in shock at the young girl's strength. She fought them off easily, and Fatim San and the ball-like chief of thieves, dining inside, heard the commotion. Peeking from the balcony, they saw a girl flying and fighting incredibly. None of the men could land a hit on her until a bald man with an enormous axe attacked her. She dodged and defeated him quickly with a series of blows. Fatim San, the slave trader, recognized her strength and pink hair as one of the Darklands warriors, the strongest warriors ever. He wanted to capture her, but was shocked to see her resist. His crow poisoned her with a slight wound, revealing he was the same man who had enslaved people from the town the day before. The attack caravan was the one Aladdin was in, now a prisoner of Fatim San. Morgiana woke up in another cell, shackled again, with a little girl beside her. The girl asked about their fate and her parents, crying. Morgiana promised to escape and reunite her with her family. The next day, the girl was sick, and Fatim San decided to throw her to the wolves. Seeing no value in her, feeling powerless, Morgiana saw the girl tied up, about to be thrown to the wolves, but remembered Golniss's courage, reminding her of her freedom. She broke her shackles with immense force, scaring the wolves away. Fatim San, refusing to surrender, ordered his men to release white tigers with saber-like teeth at her. But she fought them off, rescued the girl, and found her parents among the freed prisoners, also unexpectedly finding her rescuer among them. Lily and Sasa insisted their father, the caravan leader, gather the men to rescue Morgiana and help his friend whose caravan was robbed. They were on their way when Ogo-Khan cleared the path for the survivors, binding the thieves. Lily reunited with the strange boy who saved her in the desert, Aladdin, bringing all friends together for a joyful time. Aladdin and Morgiana decided to go to Baghdad and Kishan together, as Aladdin also needed to find his friend. They reached their destination, said goodbye to the caravan and the friends. On their way, Morgiana and Aladdin encountered a handsome young man with unusual purple hair, who was drunk, and had been robbed and stripped of his clothes by thieves. They were surprised to see him naked, but he greeted them cheerfully, introducing himself as King Sinbad, and they decided to continue their journey together. As they shared stories, Morgiana smelled the sea, and they climbed a hill to see the entire city of Baghdad and its shores, a magnificent sight. Descending into the town, they learned the ruling family was named Solga. Sinbad shared that Baghdad had good relations with most kingdoms and was a significant trade hub, but currently, the trade caravan was halted. They noticed many poor people on the sidewalks and children in tattered clothes, with Sinbad in the small clothes borrowed from Aladdin, resembling the destitute children. Arriving at Sinbad's friend's palace, they found it marked with anti-royalty and revolutionary slogans. Despite Sinbad's casual attire, the guards eventually recognized him and let them in. Inside, they were warmly welcomed, especially by one of Sinbad's friends from Morgiana's lineage. The king got dressed, and his friend teased him about losing his belongings. Morgiana and Aladdin were shown to a beautiful spacious room by a kind young maid. They inquired about ships heading south, but were informed that most navigation was halted due to poor governance and frequent thefts, especially by the fog bandits. These bandits, emerging at night and armed with strange magic, had stolen the state treasury and were robbing the wealthy to distribute wealth among the poor, led by the cunning new leader, Alibaba. Morgiana and Aladdin were shocked to hear this, finding it hard to believe. Sinbad discussed with the governor of Baghdad about allowing navigation for the people's sake, but was refused until the fog bandits were dealt with. Sinbad volunteered for the task without needing the governor's men. During lunch, Sinbad introduced his friends, Nasr with pink hair and Jafar, a strong young man with white hair, to Aladdin and Murjana. Sinbad, known for his adventures across the seven seas and his encounters with genies, expressed respect for Aladdin's magic powers and asked for their help against the fog bandits. Murjana insisted on fighting alongside them, breaking the ground with her foot in determination. They all agreed to help Sinbad to reach Baghdad and Kishan and find Ali Baba. As the fog spread, they encountered a poor family attempting to rob a wealthy man, who casually threw meat to a poor woman. Sinbad promised to improve their situation without harm, and the family left. The fog bandits appeared, using magic to confuse the soldiers and rob the rich, led by their commander Qasim with a magical sword. Jafar tried to stop them with ropes but was overpowered by Qasim's dark smoke magic. Murjana showed up with her impressive strength but was also bound by the magic smoke. It was then up to Aladdin, who played his flute to summon Ogo Khan, blocking the bandits' path. A mysterious figure, fully covered, stepped forward to confront Ogo Khan, revealing himself to be Ali Baba, leaving Aladdin in utter disbelief. Ali Baba refused to shake hands with Aladdin, his expression cold and mysterious, unlike the cheerful Ali Baba of the past. Now he summons the fire genie Amun to destroy anything in his path without mercy. He apologized to Aladdin, saying he couldn't keep his promise to travel the world with him, and left. Now Ali Baba is with his old friend Qasim, who grew up with him on the streets. They fight the army for the starving poor, and Qasim thinks about starting a war, insisting Ali Baba stays with their gang. However, Ali Baba remembers his days with Aladdin and his help. Suddenly, Murjana finds him and asks why he has changed. Ali Baba wonders how she found him. She says she followed his scent and tells her to leave before she gets hurt. Ignoring his warning, Murjana effortlessly carries Ali Baba to find Aladdin, leaping from building to building in a flight-like manner. With Ali Baba screaming like a baby, three thieves who stole Sinbad's golden weapons are contemplating whether to sell them but face the problem of Baghdad's paper currency, widely used and produced by the Co-Empire. Murjana throws Ali Baba through Aladdin's window, and they discuss the state's collapse due to the fog bandits, the enslavement of free people, and widespread poverty. Ali Baba decides to share his secret with Aladdin, explaining that Qasim, raised with him and his sister Miriam, turned to theft. After Ali Baba's mother's death, the king of Baghdad took him in, but Qasim's thievery and betrayal led Ali Baba to flee Baghdad after Qasim burned the palace and the king died. Murjana questions Ali Baba's alliance with the traitorous Qasim. Ali Baba explains his return to Baghdad to fix things, but was shocked by its condition. Qasim showed him his sister's grave, blaming the government for neglecting their district after a disease outbreak. Convinced by Qasim's revenge against the corrupt government, Ali Baba took over the fog bandits, planning to reveal his identity for peaceful negotiations with King Ahmad. Overhearing this, Sinbad and Jafar listen intently. As Ali Baba insists on war, Aladdin hits him with his grandmother's staff, suggesting they find a peaceful solution. Suddenly, the fog bandits burst in, with Qasim declaring he's there to save Ali Baba. In a dramatic scene, characters gather, Qasim and his bandits on one side, and Sinbad, Aladdin, Murjana, Jafar, and Nasr on the other. The battle began, with Sinbad and Jafar managing to overpower the bandits. Sinbad, taking control, decided to join the fog bandits to fight against the government and the king, despite Ali Baba's initial distrust and Qasim's rebellion. Sinbad offered to help fix the country by joining them, suggesting it was time for Ali Baba to reveal his identity for public negotiations with King Ahmad and the government as the legitimate heir, aiming for a peaceful resolution. They announced a public gathering at the royal palace for discussions led by Ali Baba, facing King Ahmad to argue for the people's well-being. Ahmad dismissed Ali Baba's plea, refusing to consider him a brother due to his birth from a concubine. Ali Baba protested Ahmad's disregard for his people, and amidst the crowd, a dark figure with a long black braid appeared, surrounded by dark butterflies, unseen by Aladdin before, hinting at a new mysterious presence. A man covered his face with a veil entered King Ahmad's chamber, introduced himself to Ali Baba, and Sinbad as Markio, the banker responsible for Baghdad's treasury. He revealed his face with a wide, scary smile, a black mustache, and one good eye, then shook hands with Sinbad, the king of Sindria. Suddenly, the man Aladdin saw earlier, a foolish young man, entered and insulted Sinbad, asking what brought him here and if he was affiliated with the Co-Empire. He said yes, but now he's advising the king of Baghdad. King Ahmad told Sinbad he's busy, and there would be no trade routes open with Sindria because he's allied with the Co-Empire instead, claiming it was just a trade cooperation to save Baghdad's economy. Alibaba and Sinbad left the negotiation without any success, announced it to the people of Baghdad and those following the Fad bandits. Sinbad told them his country, Sindria, welcomes them as brothers temporarily until they can achieve their demands from their own country. He informed them that Qasim and his followers had left the country. A despicable man named Jadal appeared on his black carpet, warning Aladdin in his genie Oju Khan. He offered Sinbad to join the Co-Empire's force, boasting of loving wars and destruction, which Sinbad refused. Jadal then approached Aladdin, saying he sensed a powerful aura from him. He pretended to be impressed, shook hands with Aladdin, then suddenly punched him in the face, mocking him and searching for his royal candidate with a fiery look. Discovering it was Alibaba. Jadal mocked Alibaba, laughing at how King Ahmed humiliated him earlier. Alibaba felt provoked, took out his grandmother's staff, and summoned the power of the jinn. Jadal, tauntingly, took out a tiny pen to fight with and aimed it at Alibaba. Sinbad tried to intervene, but Jadal told him to stay out of it because he had no weapons. Masher also tried to help but couldn't. Jadal attacked with many fireballs, making bystanders run away. Alibaba shot a light ball at Jadal, but it didn't affect him. Jadal suggested they fight with magic, thinking their magical powers were equal. Aladdin was puzzled by his request, and used thunder magic, but Oju Khan protected him. Jadal then flew up, gathered fog, and turned it into a huge block of ice, splitting it into many sharp arrows and launching them. The genie broke most arrows, but a sudden volley pierced him. Aladdin tried to energize the genie with his flute, and the genie managed to break free from the ice arrows. However, the genie was weakening as magical energy leaked from his wounds. Jadal then targeted Aladdin directly, but Marjana quickly moved him out of harm's way. The fight between the genie and Jadal intensified. Aladdin bade Oju Khan to return to the flute and end the fight. Jadal, fighting for fun, kept attacking. Oju Khan then landed massive punches on Jadal, who couldn't counterattack. In his last attempt, Jadal shot a huge iced arrow at Oju Khan's chest. Before fainting, Oju Khan grabbed Jadal and threw him far away. Oju Khan wasn't satisfied after beating Jadal unconscious. He gathered his strength for a final punch, healing his wounds afterward. Everyone noticed Aladdin's genie acting on its own for the first time, possibly controlled by someone else. Then, a princess from the Co-Empire appeared with 3 veiled followers and monsters, coming to save Jadal. She claimed Jadal was their precious sage and needed to be rescued. They arrived on a magical carpet that filled a large decorated hall. As Oju Khan was gathering his fiery punch again, the princess told her assistant, Kaun, to start healing while she dealt with the persistent genie. She removed her hairpin, summoning the genie of solitude and sorrow, creating a massive sword from gathered water to counter the fiery punch. With one strike, she forced the genie back into its flute, dropping it before Aladdin. Aladdin, flying on his small carpet, tried to explain that Jadal attacked them and the genie was defending. The princess then ordered her veiled followers to attack, revealing one with an elephant head under his veil. The arrogant princess decided to handle Aladdin herself, while her followers fought Alibaba, Nasr, and Jafar. Sinbad suddenly grabbed her hand, stopping her power summoning, and calmed the situation, asking her to leave peacefully. Surprised to see Sinbad, the princess reluctantly took her followers and left on the carpet, visibly annoyed. After the battle, they started healing the injured. Aladdin's genie's star vanished from the golden flute, so Aladdin tried to recharge Oju Khan with energy. Alibaba was embarrassed about his injuries from the fight and went to his room, where Morgiana startled him and began treating his wounds. Suddenly, they screamed because Aladdin fainted while giving energy to the flute, trying to save Oju Khan. But this time his condition was worse than before. Sinbad explained he was giving Oju Khan his own magical energy because Oju Khan is Aladdin's first and dearest friend, willing to sacrifice his life for him. The gang members asked Alibaba about their next steps, but he remained silent until Sinbad reassured them that supplies from Sindri were coming soon. They were told to look after the wounded. A royal carriage arrived with Barkok, who taught Alibaba fighting, and Sam, Alibaba's older brother, praising him for leading a large gang of thieves. Sam revealed he was the one feeding information to Qasim and the Fog gang to overthrow their brother Ahmad's rule. Barkok explained the crisis started when Ahmad became king and was convinced by a co-empire financier to replace Baghdad's gold with worthless paper currency, leading to the current economic crisis. Sinbad mentioned the value of gold and silver remains, unlike paper money. Barkok said Ahmad's solution to the increasing debt and crisis was to seal off poor districts and consider selling citizens as slaves to the co-empire and other countries. Morgiana suddenly joined the conversation, motivating everyone, especially Ali Baba, to prevent their country from turning into a slave factory. Sand warned they had only 5 days before Ahmed marries a co-empire princess and signs a contract to use Baghdad's people as slaves. Sinbad planned to formally oppose the contract with Sindria's and its allies' support. Sinbad and Captain Barco told Ali Baba it was his problem to solve, and they left. But Sinbad doubted Ali Baba's abilities and shared his concerns with Masrur and Jafar. However, Marjan interrupted, saying she had treated the wounded and wanted to tell Sinbad that Ali Baba, who saved her from slavery, could save all of Baghdad. In the king's palace, the wicked Markio, with a fox-like smile, persuaded King Ahmad that signing a contract to make Baghdad a hub for slave trade would quickly improve the financial situation. Sinbad believed the secret to the empire's rapid development was their magi, Jadal, a corrupt sorcerer who controlled the force of Rook. He explained that magi are universe-creating sorcerers who build towers and labyrinths to aid travelers. When Ali Baba inquired about Sinbad's magi, Sinbad revealed he had traversed one of Jadal's towers, clashed with him several times, but Jadal served the empire, creating many travelers and mythical beasts. His goal was to conquer Baghdad next. Sinbad wanted a private talk with Ali Baba after realizing their enemy was King Ahmad and the empire. He suggested Ali Baba replace his brother as king and learn to use the genie properly. Ali Baba refused, feeling unworthy and lacking confidence. Ali Baba wondered, pondering the plight of the poor who bombarded him with questions and requests for reassurance. Suddenly, a rope wrapped around his hand, pulling him to a small boat where he met Qasim after a long absence. Qasim lamented the state of affairs. Qasim confessed his inability to coexist with Sinbad and mentioned a monster from the empire attacking them. He proposed arming the people to overthrow the king, especially once they learned of the king's plan to sell them as slaves. He introduced a masked man with sinister vibes, claiming to be a simple arms dealer, but Ali Baba felt uneasy about his aura. Ali Baba rejected the idea of war, fearing it would doom the people against the empire's mighty army and allies. However, Qasim was determined, believing in victory despite the sacrifices. Ali Baba yelled in his face, saying he would find another way to save the country without shedding a drop of blood. But Qasim slapped him, and the arms dealer, still hiding his face, was very eager for Ali Baba to agree to the war. However, he refused, and Qasim told him he was utterly useless, even as the king's son, and if he stood in his way again, he would consider him an enemy. So Ali Baba went to Sinbad to learn how to control his genie's power, thinking he must learn to stop Qasim. Sinbad began teaching him how to draw on the genie's power and keep his energy from running out. Aladdin was still unconscious in bed, and Ali Baba visited him, telling him what was happening, hoping he would wake up and be by his side in this great ordeal. Morgiana was doing many tasks without rest, mentally prepared for any intervention to help Ali Baba, who she had great hope in. Suddenly, Ali Baba stood up, went to the royal palace's gate, and ordered the guards to open the gate for Baghdad's third prince, Ali Baba Saluja.